Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joined us today here in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform, who joined us online. It's year 9 of the war, and today is day 266 from the beginning of the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor in our land. And now we will be talking about the problems faced by our business and applied to Business Ombudsman, about the results of the work of our Business Ombudsman. So I want to introduce you our guest today. It's Roman Vashchuk, Business Ombudsman. Good afternoon, Mr. Roman. Please tell us how did your work changed and what are the problems that businesses come to you currently? Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joined us physically and virtually. So based on the applications for this year and the Q3, the picture we're seeing in terms of applications of Ukrainian businesses to us. So in 2021, before the full-scale invasion, we received the record number of applications. It's 2,000 complaints, out of which about 1,500 were finished successfully. The text issues were 59%, the state regulators 6%, law enforcement agencies 15%, local authorities 4%, and customs issues 3%. Those were the issues which the businesses came to us. In terms of how we could influence those processes, the financial effect of return of the funds to the Ukrainian businesses, and in our case it includes all businesses from the smallest to the biggest ones, including with the Ukrainian and foreign capital. So we returned about 2 billion hryvnias in taxes, in unlawful taxation and penalties. So law enforcement problems, the problems of regulators and local authorities, custom issues are in minority because they are very thorough. For example, when a refrigerator with tomatoes is at the customs, and those are the very fast processes, and they go directly to the court actually, and Ombudsman is the pre-court authority of dispute resolution. Last year we issued 2 systemic reports. I'll show you the first billion retained by the businesses. So when the court resolutions are awarded, sometimes they are not fulfilled because sometimes there is a comma in the wrong place, which creates a great complication, or maybe there may be 2 similar laws that contradict each other and the government authorities do not fulfill either of them. This is why we propose to solve this problem. This is the problem number 2, the pressure of the law enforcement agencies on the businesses. If we look at this year, within the first month of the full-scale invasion, the old problems withdrew to the background. We received an application, we turned to the helpline regime of informal pre-court processing that was impossible without the presence of the court. So we had a free businesses. We were contacted regarding import relocations, booking of the employees, so the new problems of the wartime. But in Q3, so it's July-September 2022, we had around 300 applications, out of which half was processed. So we started getting the pre-war issues in the same proportions. So, for example, 68% taxation, and second go the law enforcement agencies pressure on business, and the rest is systemic amendments. What we're trying to do in this situation where we have, so to say, normalization, but not normalization of the kind that Ukrainian businesses would love to see and the majority of citizens would love to see. So we see the old problems coming back. We double-folded the pace of work of our expert groups with the state tax services, so the issues are being discussed with them along with the trends. Now we do it on a monthly basis. We can solve these issues now in a more steady manner in order not to make it exclusively palliative activity where we, instead of treating the key problems, we solve like individual cases. We started the process of amendments to the regulation 1145. So this is the regulation for the procedure of taxation. And depending on what's written there, technically, Ukrainian legislation and practice requires very precise procedures, very precise wordings. It depends on how a company can pay taxes and receive indemnification in relevant cases, for example, in terms of VAT reimbursement. Also, we try to be partners of the state tax service or constructive critics, but in this case, partners. So we had one series, and starting from tomorrow, we'll start another series of webinars with state tax service. It's a preventive information. So together with the tax service employees, we have to explain the cornerstones and to give the business the understanding of how not to stumble upon those stones. So tomorrow, the subject will be SM Core. It's an abbreviation not understandable to everyone yet, but is the system of registration and termination of the termination of tax invoices, of how they should be processed through automated systems to enable it to work in automatic mode and not to return to manual mode of operation. I would like to stop at this issue because generally Ukraine has very well developed automatic system of tax payment and tax reimbursement. I mean the VAT reimbursement. Specifically in manufacturing industry, every participant of the chain of manufacture is entitled to the reimbursement of what they bought, invested in their manufacturing process, and then sold it to someone else. It's a complicated system, but it's understandable to many participants of the market players. But what we see this year is the wave of stopping, of deterring the business invoices. I've heard the figure from the business representatives about 70 billion hryvnias, the deterred tax invoices, which cover about 17% of the significant enterprises in Ukraine, which means that the automatic system, which was praised by a lot of people, it became manual, switched to manual mode. And in manual mode, the corruption risks and the risks of abuse grow. So the question is how to return the system to the legal field and to automatic mode, which gives business the opportunity to envisage the future, to see the future. It gives it predictability. So if the 70 billion hryvnias are blocked, so those are the turnover costs which are not available to the businesses, for example, for manufacture of the fire trucks or to manufacture other important products for defense industries. So this determinant should be relieved in some way. We also work with the businesses afflicted by war. We produce the road maps for the documenting of losses and damages. We gathered all the programs for business supports in one place, provided by the government authorities, which are providing advice, and we are happy to cooperate in this field with DIA business, so make it available for a wider business community. I would return to the topic of business under blockade, so business under occupation, and now under conditions of deoccupation. We tried, based on the legislation in effect, to give advice and recommendations. We hear voices from the businesses. There are no strict algorithms, clear algorithms that business can rely on in response to the application by business. And to the second part, if there is an inspection or law enforcement inspection for business, and they ask, why did your business do this or that, it's difficult to explain that we were acting in compliance with algorithm A, B, or C, and this is the field for corruption risk and abuse and pressure on business. As to our attempts to look forward, we entered into a partnership with Rare Ukraine Coalition. It's the Coalition for Transparent Rebuilding, initiated by Transparency International Ukraine. We provide recommendations and consultation to the pilots project in the village of Andriivka, how to simplify the court procedures for reimbursement, and the general dialogue with our key stakeholders. There are 5 big business associations in terms of rebuilding. And these are the key summaries we have for the time being. I want to emphasize that Ukrainian business does everything for the victory. The business is flexible and resilient, and it doesn't deserve to be formally treated by formal indicators or some interpretations counting that in attempt to have the court proceedings closed in some way or coordinated in some way. Ukraine has no time for games like this. In pre-war periods, only 3 or 4% of all the proceedings were brought to court. It's the terrible waste of state resource by the law enforcement or an investigation, and for authorities which don't fulfill the tasks, and it distracts business from their normal activities of making money and manufacturing products. And now it's even more horrible in terms of the defense industry and volunteer activity, and time is wasted for photocopying documents or sitting on the benches waiting for officials or during interrogations in law enforcement authorities. The business tries wherever there is very clearly treacherous activity. Such activity should be stopped and punished, but playing in hanging the business on a hook due to the changes of martial law or some other interpretations or misinterpretations of their activity, the country cannot afford this. Mr. Roman, indeed, Ukrainian business faced such challenges that very few faced. We understand the damages, the destructions due to the rocket strikes and the activities of businesses in occupied and the occupied territories. Now the rebuilding of businesses in the occupied territories, and at the same time the state of Ukraine and us as Ukrainians are interested in having business operating and function, because we understand is the economy of our country. So what are the tools that Business Ombudsman Council now has to protect or to support the business which is Ukrainian, which is honest and acts in an honest manner? Starting from tomorrow, we relaunch the full range of our services as to processing of the complaints by the business, because we acted under the wartime regime, but starting from yesterday we will accept complaints under normal procedure and process them in the normal manner. We have the very highly qualified inspectors, and we will with reinvigorated manner take these applications for consideration. Also, since government is one of the co-founders of our council, we will emphasize for them that it's not only government authorities have to do, but also what they don't have to do. There's a lot actually can be done to either complicate or simplify the life of businesses by the actions of the government authorities. You know, also as from the side of the business, also on part of government authorities, I have certain nostalgia by for the first month of full-scale invasion. It sounds as a complete paradox, but back then some traditional games of the government officials stopped. I mean, the law enforcement agencies as well, and this, with the stabilization of the situation, they are resuming, but they should not be coming back. This is the wrong way of normalization. You communicate a lot with the government representatives. What are the first steps to be taken by the state and the representatives of the states to make those rules clear for the business? They have to be clearly stated, the algorithms where they are needed, for example, where there is a law on reimbursement for the individuals and legal entities, which contemplates the existence of the list of the deoccupied territories. For the time being, we don't have such a list. Without it, the law cannot operate. And I understand that there might be a problem of funding for this law, because we're in a budget crisis and we depend on the foreign funding. However, the people should be given clear benchmarks, and the same that I mentioned about the algorithms of what can be or cannot be done in previously occupied but now deoccupied territories, because without such clear statements, such clear wording, it leaves a lot of space for mistake by businesses themselves and for unlawful creativeness of the law enforcement agencies. We had an example told to us. A company came to us saying that their production capacities found themselves under occupation, and they reported to security service of Ukraine for the next day. And the security service started a criminal case for the unlawful capture of the manufacturing facilities of the company. And another department opened a case against the company for existing under occupation, for operating under occupation. So the right hand should know what the left hand does, and the brain should control both of the arms. Dear colleagues, your questions, please. Any questions? We have no questions in the studio. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roman. I will remind you, we had Roman Vashchuk with us, Business Ombudsman. Thanks for joining us. Dear colleagues, our next briefing is at 1400. Yaroslav Shanko will join us, the head of Department of Juvenile Prevention of National Police of Ukraine, and we'll talk about the children afflicted by the war. So bear with us. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.